All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming out on this lovely day today. Appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. We have reached the appointed number of senators for quorum, so you're all stuck. You can't leave until we've concluded our business, but we do appreciate you being here. Call this meeting to order at 3:10 on December 4th. Roll is being taken by means of sign-in, so if you haven't signed in at the sheets at the front, please make sure you do on your way out as you exit the meeting later. We have a number of alternate representatives, Faridun Agazadeh for Ali Musad Ali, Nicolette Davis for Michael Holt, Carol Wilson for Peter Duran, Yenfang Su for Samuel Snow, Heidi Thompson for Summer Chandler, Todd Gibson for William Van Boxtel, and Holly Andrews for Noah DeWitt. Is there anyone who is serving as an alternate today whose name I did not just call? Okay, excellent. And then we do have a number of guests with us. We have James T. Dalton, Executive Vice President of LSU, Troy Blanchard, Interim Provost, Matthew Calamia, Associate Dean, Pinkie Gordon Lane Graduate School, Jessica Zagorski, Assistant Dean of Recruiting and Admissions, Pinkie Gordon Lane Graduate School, and Craig Woolley, Chief Information Officer. Thank you all for being here today. The public comments are empty. We have no public comments for today, as I'm sure you are as relieved as I am. So we will proceed with the consideration of the minutes. The minutes from our prior meeting on November 3rd were distributed via email in advance of today's meeting. I'm assuming we can forego a reading of the minutes unless there are any objections. All right, hearing no objections, are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes as distributed? All right, hearing no amendments or corrections to the minutes, they are approved as distributed, and thank you to Secretary Osborne for preparing those for us as always. We appreciate the Executive Vice President's time, and I do realize he has other obligations. So at this point in the meeting, I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda and take up the opening remarks by the Executive Vice President at this point in time. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Thank you very much. Are there any objections? All right, hearing no objections, the agenda is amended, and at this point in time, I would like to invite up to the platform Executive Vice President James T. Dalton. Thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you on this beautiful fall day. This is my first full week on campus. I'm glad to say that one of the things that it started off with was a lunch with Dan to reacquaint after the search process. I see a couple of other familiar faces in the room as well, and it's the honor and the privilege of my career to serve as Chancellor here at LSU. That will become official at the board meeting December 11th of next week, where Dr. Roos and I, the president of LSU, are working closely, as you might imagine, to work through the reorganization that's been planned, which will also be discussed at the December 11th board meeting. Dr. Roos and I, as well as Ashley Arsenault and Jason French, are meeting every morning at 8 a.m. To start to work through that process, and we've made some great success. As you've probably heard, we're dividing things into a president at the system level. I serve as executive vice president at the system level, and then we will establish again a chancellor at LSU. Dr. Roos, as president of the system, all of the chancellors will report into him. That includes me at the Baton Rouge flagship A&M campus. I'll talk about that in a little further detail in a couple of moments. That includes the campuses at Eunice, Alexandria, and Shreveport, and also as well as the University of New Orleans, which will transition to LSU New Orleans as of July 1st of 2026. Dr. Roos is also overseeing athletics, as you've probably read over the past couple of weeks. He tells me that that's taken up about 20 hours of his day over each of the past days of the last 3 weeks. So I too am a big college sports fan, but am quite happy at this moment that he's dealing with those issues, which leads me to focus on the educational scholarship and other activities that go on the main campus, the A&M campus. As you've read as well, we're reorganizing at some of the other health science centers, the Health Science Center in New Orleans, as well as the Health Science Center in Shreveport, will report into me as of that December 11th meeting, if everything goes according to schedule. Pennington Biomedical Research Center, as well as the Ag Center, will report into me as well, as we form together this larger flagship campus, combining not only the educational missions, but also the research missions. That's not going to happen overnight. It's one thing to work through the board and change the organizational structure. Ms. Arsenault and myself were just talking about what that looks like in terms of SAC-COC, major changes that we've got to announce to them. It goes further than that, as you might imagine. We've also got to work with NSF, HERD, and the federal bodies to get ourselves under probably a single indirect cost rate, organizational codes, and everything like that. And given some of the timelines, for example, the timeline for SAC-COC is we've got to submit something by this Thursday to propose the path that we're going down. So if we miss that timeline, we're probably at least another quarter or 2 quarters out. So we're paying attention to the details and trying to make sure we move forward in a thoughtful and strategic way to make sure that we meet the timelines and the deadlines that are set out in front of us. There's a lot of advantage to this system. It's not just a quantitative improvement, as you might imagine, in terms of some of our data, which we can present nationally, but it also allows us better to, under the guidance of a single chancellor with senior vice chancellor, is what we're envisioning at the other units reporting in to me, that allows us not only to think strategically about our educational programs, but also research. When I look, I just came back from the Farm Bureau, a meeting there this morning, which is just a small look into what we're doing in the Ag Center, the Extension Services, and the experimental stations across the state. That's a huge opportunity for us, and I think it's, as I said there, it's emblematic of the reach that this land grant flagship university can have across the state. And it's not just the Ag Center that we need to make that effort. It's Pennington, it's here on the A&M campus, it's in every college department within this campus, as well as the health science centers in New Orleans and Shreveport and Pennington. So there's a lot to do, but there's a lot of advantages that come along with that. We're on a pretty tight timeline. Dr. Roos and I, as we said, and even in our early first news conference, we hope to have this large, highest level parts of the new organizational structure out within the first 30 days. That's fairly an easy thing to at least retitle and think about that. But with all change comes thoughts about how to best to do that. I've met with several of the other senior leadership on the campus. Provost Blanchard just walked in. We met earlier this week, and as well as met with Robert Twilley, David Guzik. The list goes on and on. I'm already forgetting too many, but there's a lot to learn, a lot of fire hoses to drink from, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to do that. I met with the council or the deans yesterday. I'm not sure I say council of deans, but it's probably some other official term for it. We had a great first meeting, and really just sort of introducing to them some of these same comments. Shared my cell phone with them, number with them, so that they can reach out and institute communications very quickly. The other thing that I leaned into, quite frankly, though, is the importance of the chain of command. Although I keep an open door and open email inbox all the time, as you might imagine, for major things that come forward, I expect the deans to work through Provost Blanchard as we bring things up through the system, and I hope that the Faculty Senate will take that same approach in terms of as you bring academic or other research faculty issues forward, bring them to Provost Blanchard, and he and I will work through to make sure that we respond in a timely, efficient, and hopefully a favorable manner for the needs of the faculty and the staff and the students across the campus and abroad. I'll also mention, and Provost Blanchard and I have talked about this, we have a number of interim positions across the units right now, and going to move quickly to fill those. Provost Blanchard right now has an interim title to his name, and I've told him that we're going to do a national, international search for a provost. He and I work well. I have a lot of confidence in Provost Blanchard, and he will be a candidate for that position, but I think as part of branding him as the best candidate for that, it's important to go through a search where others can come forward, and you too can see just the qualities and drive that he brings to the positions compared to others. Shortly after we get that done, we'll move into some of the searches for interim deans and all the way down through the line across the university. The same thing goes at some of the other centers that are out there. We've got an interim leader of the Health Science Center in Shreveport, for example. So we're going to be jumping into those in a fairly straightforward manner as well. I think those are the largest part of my comments. I'm excited to be here. My goal, the goals that they've stated for me are to enhance the research and educational and recognition of what we do here at LSU. We're punching above our weight, or at least punching above the recognition that we receive already. And so I think part of that is communication. We've got to get better at talking about the great things that we're doing. That's not only internally, but externally. And then I'll be working with the provost, the deans, and the faculty senate as well to make sure that we're putting the resources and the focus on things that can make us better and achieve the goals that we all have. I'll be glad to open it up for a few questions right now. Dan?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, if you can just make sure that you wait for a microphone, and then please do identify yourself. I believe we have, yes, there's a microphone coming your way. And then once you've received it, please just do identify yourself and so that the chancellor knows with whom he's speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it on? Can you hear me? Great. I'm Fred Agazadeh. I am from Industrial Engineering Department, and I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you.
I think we are thrilled to have you here. And I appreciated your comments. Look like all planned, everything is planned out. And me being an industrial engineer, I appreciate that. So I really do that. I've been here for a long time. And I've been member of the faculty senate for many years. I've been a chair of the graduate council, chair of the college policy committee. By the way, I come from Alabama too, but I don't tell that people. People don't like that. I would suggest that keep that quiet. So faculty talk to me. They talk to me and I know how they feel. They come to me and they say, we are producing more. We have larger classes. We are bringing more grants. We are publishing more papers. But every year we get about 3-4% salary cut because of the inflation. Once in a while, we get a 3% raise, which comes to the college. The dean takes 1%. The chairman takes 1%. And some of my friends and my colleagues, they get about 0.5%. So basically, again, they get about 3% or 2.5% salary cut. So I talked to the administrators and I talked to previous president, and I told them that. And his answer was, well, if they don't like it, tell them to leave. In answer to that, I said, well, we are not going anyplace. We are the university. We are the faculty. Because of us, this university is here. If anybody is going to leave, are the administrators. And he left, as a matter of fact. So since you're in planning process, I was just wondering, no, I'm not saying that you're to ask you that. I'm just mentioning that how the faculty feels. As I told to the president, I said, we're here, we are publishing more, We are teaching more classes, larger classes. We are bringing more money, and you get $750,000 raise, not us. And I said, maybe you can provide us with some kind of perk, maybe free tuition for our family members. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. Maybe free tuition for our family members, or maybe free use of the rec center, UREC. Maybe free parking if we don't have any budget or something, because we are working so hard. And then I say, okay, well, what about us? Nobody gives us anything. So I thought I'd just bring it to your attention. Again, welcome to campus, and we are thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Next question. I figured we'd start off with either salary or parking. It's a pretty common thing among university campuses. But thank you for your comments. As you can imagine, as I said, it's my first full week. I'm 2 weeks into the job, and it's not an uncommon theme that comes up across universities, given some of the restrictions we have as a state body for salary increases of any kind. I served as provost at that school up about 5 hours up the highway, as you know, for 5 years, and it was an issue there as well. And it took a while to tackle that. And part of it, I can just tell you based on my experiences there, part of it is making sure that we understand that it is a priority, where we stand compared to peers, and then setting a goal for where we want to be amongst our peers. If we want to be a top 50 university, which has been articulated to me, then we should think about being the top 50 in all the measures of the university, and that includes salaries and whatnot. Are we going to get to the top 50 in salaries? I don't know, because one, I don't know where we are today. I can promise you, as I did at my prior institution, that I'm going to take a deep look at it, a quick look at it. It's thankfully, in terms of the contract which was put in front of me, I'm told to address that issue as one of the goals that came forward almost immediately to me. So the approach I've taken, and if you can probably read even some of the news announcements at my prior institution before I left, we did a fairly significant faculty salary program. It was one of the last things I got done before I left there. Our goal there was to get our faculty salaries to the 50th percentile we were far below that. I've seen some comparisons to SEC institutions, and LSU is below that goal today too. When I looked at that gap at that institution, it was a very big number that was not going to be filled within 1 year, 2 years, or even 3. Because when you have that many faculty doing a great job, it takes a while to catch up. The approach that I took in my first round at that before I left that institution was to hit the high performers with a larger increment of raise. I also spread out a raise over everyone making below $60,000 on the faculty at the University of Alabama. Because to your point, we have some high-performing people that should be rewarded for their high performance, but we've also got a whole range of folks that are contributing at different levels. And whereas a high inflation rate, for me, I've experienced that differently than a faculty member making $55,000 to $60,000. So I try to pay attention to those details as best I can. Am I going to get to that in my first year? I quite frankly don't know. I'll be honest and say probably not. I've got to figure out where we are. I've got to figure out who the CFO is going to be at the flagship campus versus the system office. But I promise you, I'll look at it as one of the first orders of business and figure out a strategy to get there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Parking, I can't help you, sorry.
Any additional questions? All right. Well, Chancellor Dalton, thank you so much. And please consider yourself to have a standing invitation to come back anytime you like. We will return to the published agenda at this point in time, and that brings us to the President's report. Senators, the final report for this semester includes an overview of a few processes which have unfolded over the preceding months and some items to look forward to in the spring. Number 1, courses and curricula checklist, modern campus, and the curriculum cycle. The Faculty Senate's Courses and Curricula Committee has created a proposal checklist to assist faculty with the preparation of submissions. The checklist, which is now available on the committee's website, highlights required elements which must be included in every submission and provides guidance to help facilitate timely approval by the committee. I encourage all faculty who may be preparing submissions to utilize the checklist and the syllabus template, which is also available on the website. As you are likely aware, LSU has transitioned to the Modern Campus Curriculum, or MCC, platform for submission and routing of course proposals. The Office of Institutional Effectiveness, or OIE, reports that the transition has gone well, with a total of 209 proposals entered into the system prior to the closing of the academic year 2026-27 curriculum cycle on December 1st. The academic year 2027-28 curriculum cycle will open no later than April 15th, 2026, and the OIE will make refresher trainings and one-on-one appointments available in spring for faculty and academic administrative staff to assist with the next round of submissions. Updated training materials will also be available on the MCC support website. 2, Phased Retirement Task Force. H.R. 143 of the 2025 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature, which was authored by Representative Bacala, created a task force to study the possibility of establishing a phased retirement program for Louisiana's public post-secondary education institutions. Phased retirement is a process by which employees who are eligible for retirement can sign an agreement with their employer to retire at a set time in the future and reduce their workload prior to that date. This eases the transition for employers while also allowing for the retention of experienced employees at a time when they may be looking to lighten their workload. I and 3 additional representatives from LSU have been serving on the task force, which has met monthly since July, and we will have one more meeting in December to finalize our recommendations, which are due by December 31st. While potentially subject to change, I anticipate that the final report will include a recommendation that each public system develop a phased retirement program which is appropriate for their needs, though enrollment in the program will be voluntary. The report will also include a list of suggested conditions for participation. More information about the committee, including membership, meeting agendas, and presentations, can be found on the Phased Retirement Task Force website. 3, Higher Education Reform Task Force. Executive Order number JML 25-083 created a task force to study accreditation reform for public post-secondary institutions within the state. LSU was represented on this task force by Board of Supervisors Chairman Scott Ballard. At its meeting on November 13th, the task force approved the following recommendations. 1, propose legislation allowing public higher education institutions the ability to choose any accreditor recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. 2, propose legislation removing all statutory references to SAC-COC as a named accrediting agency and replace them with, quote, any accreditor recognized by the U.S. Department of Education, end quote. 3, propose legislation prohibiting an accrediting agency from compelling any public higher education institution to violate state law. 4, propose legislation requiring public higher education institutions to post on their website relevant documentation submitted to their accreditor to gain or maintain accreditation. 5, request that the Board of Regents revise their academic affairs policies and procedures to remove all references to SAC-COC. And 6, request that the Board of Regents make a formal request to the Division of Administration for an appropriation to gain CPHE membership and a CPHE board seat. The CPHE referenced in the recommendations is the Commission for Public Higher Education, a newly formed accreditor not yet recognized by the Department of Education. CPHE has released its accreditation standards, which were developed by the Commission and went through a public feedback process. Input was also provided by the group Faculty for Responsible Education and Accreditation, or FREA, a voluntary association of faculty formed from the original 6 CPHE member states, which I joined earlier in the semester after receiving an invitation from the group. While it is recommended that the Board of Regents make a formal request to join CPHE's board, my understanding, based in part on my work with FREA and CPHE representatives, is that the choice to be accredited by the organization will fall to each university system. Additional details on the state task force, including membership and meeting agendas, can be found at the Higher Education Reform Task Force website. 4. Student Success Spring Forums. The Student Success Initiative is planning to offer a series of events in the spring to assist faculty in increasing engagement in large classes. More information about this effort, which will be offered as a collaboration between communication across the curriculum, the Office of Academic Affairs, the Faculty Senate, and other groups, will be forthcoming early in the spring semester. And 5, HR Engagement Survey. The HR Engagement Survey will close tomorrow, December 5th. So please remind your colleagues to participate using the link sent to them by HR in their email if they have not yet done so already. As a reminder, all responses are confidential and cannot be associated with the faculty member who submits them. I wish you and your students the very best of luck with the upcoming final exam period and hope that you and your families have a restful and enjoyable break. Safe travels and happy holidays. That concludes the President's report, and I'm happy to address any questions you may have. Great. Well, hearing no questions, we will proceed to our first piece of business for today. And that is going to be consideration of the draft guidelines on the use of generative AI in curriculum. And that is going to be presented by the Faculty Senate Generative AI Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Param Singh. I'm the chair of the Faculty Senate Generative AI Committee, and I'm joined by some of the members of the Generative AI Committee. I'll give the microphone to the secretary of the committee, Dr. Yang, who has worked extremely hard of like the 19 public meetings following open meetings laws. So he will start the presentation, and then me and Trevor Paul, who is operations research manager and facility services from the staff side, we will cover rest of the talk.
Hi, Faculty Senate GOA Committee, we presented our first draft of this Gen AI guidelines for curriculum document on November 3rd, right in here. And it went through the approval process, and the latest approved version is the December 1st one. And you can get some of the copies, paper copies from the table. And this presentation is about the amendments for those latest approved version. So this committee, Faculty Senate Ad Hoc Committee on Generative AI, was established by the Faculty Senate in March this year. And the main purpose was to draft a Gen AI adoption guidelines for the faculty, students, and staff for the whole LSU community. So we had over 19 meetings so far and inviting people from all different departments and ITS to listen to their perspective on this subject. We have currently active members having all different backgrounds. So Inessa Bazayev from music, Fabio Capra, architecture, who serves as the vice chair, Alexander Lee from vet school, Tracy Moore, law center, Michelle Osborne from vet school, Trevor is in administration, Ingmar Schugel, mechanical and industrial engineering, physics and astronomy. He serves as the chair of this committee, and Mayang Tyagi, engineering, and myself from information studies, CCT. And we will have two members from the spring semester, Michael Ardoin from LSU Ethics Institute, and Will Monroe from Law. And we appreciate Jason James and Amy South-Pittman for their service.
So I just want to add, like, the committee membership like covers a very diverse set of talent. Like, we have skeptics in the committee, and we have the internationally recognized experts on the use of generative AI. So it has been a real fun for me as a chair to have this committee. And I'm really honored, like Will Monroe, like who's a big expert on generative AI, and Michael Auditorium, like who is assistant director of LSU Ethics Institute. They will be joining the committee in spring, which makes the committee extremely powerful brain-wise. I'll give some background of how we started. So in spring 2025, we started working on establishing guidelines by taking diverse viewpoints, which included the ones which were from the committee members. And I thank President Tyrone to set up a very, very strongly talented committee with had very diverse viewpoints. And we started studying from various universities. What were their policies? What were their guidelines? I promise you we didn't use generative AI either to frame the guidelines or to study those guidelines. This was pure human intelligence all through in all the committee meetings. As we were working through, and we took a brief pause in the summer, in September 2025, Governor Landry passed an executive order, JML 25103, which fixed December 15th of this year for state agencies to have generative AI guidelines or policies in place. The Louisiana Department of Administration established AI acceptable user policy on September 29th this year. We had already started working on this some time back. In mid-October 2025, Craig Woolley, Chief Information Officer, and Sumit Jain, Chief Information Security Officer, they drafted the first draft of PS 121, which is a policy statement on acceptable use policy for IT infrastructure. A standard 4 was quickly drafted, and that was approved by Faculty Senate IT Committee. And then it was later approved by IT Governance Council. And in late October 2025, the committee finished the first draft guidelines for curriculum. That is what we were advised by the Office of Academic Affairs, that we should rush these through to meet the December 15th deadline. Our primary reference was Boston University policies, and we'll be very happy to share those with you. They had their own task force. They had their own students craft guidelines for generative AI, which faculty and staff went through. So that served as our primary reference. And then we were really helped by the documents from LSU libraries, who had done an incredible job earlier, LSU Student Advocacy and Accountability, and the Board of Regents documents. They served as very important references, along with PS 121 Standard 4. The draft was distributed to faculty senators late October, and in November 2025, the committee presented the first summary to the Senate in the November 4th meeting. And soon after that, those draft guidelines were distributed to all faculty members across the campus and various stakeholders in academic administration and related units. And we requested that if people can come back to us with any feedback, comments, or criticism by November 21st, 2025. So I am really, really deeply grateful to Jackie Bach, Vice Provost of LSU, and Office of Academic Affairs, like Provost Blanchard and Senior Vice Provost Cassidy, for great help. Like Vice Provost Bach was really helpful in coordinating the distribution of these guidelines with all the administrative units, which is Student Advocacy and Accountability, LSU Online, Office of Disability Services, Graduate Council, LSU Ethics Institute. And I'm really grateful to all of these units, like who spent a lot of time just before the Thanksgiving break to give us all the valuable comments. And I'm very happy to say that the committee, like, we went through these edits, and this document is not the document of the committee anymore. This document is something which the university as a whole, institutional wise, has agreed as a consensus that these are the guidelines we should probably adopt right now. And then maybe we should draft the policies based on this next year. These are not the policies. These are just the guidelines, set of best practices. The revised guidelines with all of these, all the input was incorporated till last night. I got some last minute last night input on last night, which will form the amendment. Everything which was sent to us was incorporated. No comment was left out. And if there was a conflict between different stakeholders, we worked with all the stakeholders together to to thread as many needles as possible to achieve a consensus. Okay, so what were the key changes? Now, the initial document was 10 pages, now it reads 12 pages. And partly because the syllabus statements were expanded, and SAA advised us that we should be very clear if the guidelines are not followed, what will be the consequences, and they wanted to have a homogeneity on those, so those were just cut and paste at various points. There are additions to syllabus statements as recommended by SAA. Office of Disability Services, LSU and LSU Online, they played a very important role in expanding, improving, and adding to accessibility statements, special with care for faculty or students or staff with disabilities, and how any software which is used to overcome their hindrances will be exempt from some of the guidelines and what are the rules and so on. And finally, like some of the members from the Graduate Council, they reported, and other faculty members also reported that, well, at some point we are saying in the guidelines that LSU should be developing these courses. Can we be more explicit? And so now the recommendations clearly state in the preamble that we request LSU to develop courses, seminars, and workshops for generative AI literacy. And I'm really happy to announce, and Provost Blanchard takes all the credit of that. Like, he is already has planned introductory course on that. He has instructors in mind, and I think like we'll be rolling that out very soon at some point. Trevor?
Good afternoon, everyone. So the committee made an amendment today to the guidelines to accommodate feedback from various stakeholders. We are appreciative to all those who shared that feedback. From the staff perspective, we are welcoming these guidelines to help us navigate through the evolution of generative AI. So here is the feedback of the various stakeholders on translation using generative AI. Section 2.3, which is the student section. 3.2 is the faculty section to change translation to translation. It's allowed in case of direct quotes in articles or research papers when cited as translated by generative AI. Translated work cannot be presented as students or faculty's own work. The syllabus statement, there was a change. Statement A, B, so page 2, the change, the use of tools such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, or any other generative AI for writing, editing, summarizing, translating, or analyzing is not permitted. It has been changed to the use of tools such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, and any other generative AI for writing, editing, summarizing, or analyzing is not permitted. Translation is allowed only in case of direct quotes in articles or research papers when cited as translated by generative AI. Translated work cannot be presented as students' work. So the community requests the faculty senate to endorse this current version of the curriculum guidelines. And as Param has said, this is not a policy statement. I'm going to say it again. This is not a policy statement, but only a broad outline of best practices and guidelines to fill an important gap before December 15th deadline. And of course, given the rapid advances of generative AI, the guidelines should be considered a living document. So we welcome feedback. If you can share that with us, we'll be greatly appreciative of that with the community, various stakeholders of the Office of Academic Affairs when the generative AI policy is framed. Thank you.
So on behalf of the Generative AI the committee, I would like to make a motion that the Faculty Senate endorses the current guidelines. Again, these are just guidelines. These are just best practices. This is not a policy. The policy will be framed later on, hopefully next year. And the request is with this amendment, which has been made for the translation, which essentially came from the Department of Foreign Languages, which essentially Senator Matza brought up last afternoon to me. So we incorporated that. So I would like to make a motion that the Senate approves these or endorses the current version of guidelines. If there are any edits to be made, like we can still make them. If you break these guidelines, PS 104 cannot start against you. So that is being promised. So this is not a law. So.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all the work that the committee has done. It's really been a lot. The motion on the floor is to endorse the guidelines as drafted by the committee. Motions from committees do not require a second, so we will enter immediately into discussion. Discussion of the motion for endorsement of the GAI guidelines. And if anyone has any comments or questions, please do wait for the mic to come to you, and then please do identify yourself once you receive the mic.
So I'm supposing from CCT and Science. So I have a question. So suppose a student solves an assignment using ChatGPT, right? Then he takes the solution and writes it in his own language. Okay, takes the solution, it's a technical solution, he writes it in his own language and submits, right? So what will be the consequences? The solution was not solved by the student, but it was solved by ChatGPT. But it has been in his own language. And it's impossible almost impossible to catch that because you cannot use an AI detector to catch once it's written in his own language.
So thank you, Supratik. If you go through the page 10 to page 12, there are different kinds of sample syllabi statements. It depends on whether the faculty is allowing the use of generative AI, whether the faculty is restricting the use of generative AI. And there is also the third option, which we went beyond the SAA, that you can allow with reflection and so on. So to answer the first part of the question, if I understood correctly, if the faculty has denied the use of generative AI and the student uses generative AI.
It's a clear case, right? I'm talking about other cases.
The other cases?
Yes.
Where you allow?
You allow, but then once the student solves the problem, right? He uses generative AI to solve the problem, then he writes the solution in his own language, right, and submits.
I think that's very challenging to find. Like that's the...
Yeah, so we need to have some kind of, maybe put that explicitly that, okay, but that may be allowed or that may not be allowed, right?
Yes.
So you have language in that part.
Yes, you are free to modify the language. Though the language statements there are just sample language statements. So you can edit the language statement the way you wish. The responsibility of that, eventually catching the student if the student has violated it, rests with SAA. And I think we all will agree that it's really difficult to use generative AI plagiarism checkers and so on at the current stage. So the guidelines don't say use this language only. These are just templates and you can modify the language you want.
Okay.
Hi.
Sure. I think my comment would be, Supratik, please do read that very critically. The committee did discuss these issues at length. And in the three sample syllabi that we are suggesting, we have considered that. From my end, I use generative AI, the courses I am teaching it. So onus falls on the instructor to how do they want to implement within their course.
Allowed, right? It's very unclear.
Which part? Yeah. Suggest, because, yeah.
Actually, I think Ingmar Schögel from mechanical engineering. So I think in one of the cases where it's basically we are allowing the students to use generative AI, I think this is legitimate. So if you go with this option, if you go with the option of basically restricted use or basically kind of limited use of generative AI, it would violate this because the student would not provide any reflection on this use. Then it's basically fully within your right to kind of like go after this.
No, for the case where you don't allow, it's clear. For the case where you allow, right, it's not clear because you're not specifying the scope.
We will be very, very happy to take your feedback or any suggested revision into consideration. Again, this is a living document. This is not a policy. These are just, and I think this feedback will be very important when Provost Blanchard and his team formulates a policy next year.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Christofferson from PBS at the Vet School. I have a suggestion and a question. So my suggestion is, and you may have done this when you engage stakeholders, is to engage the employers of students. So look outside and see, especially not maybe right now, but as we see more and more adoption of AI, what are the skills that they're losing by using AI? My other question is sort of procedural. So the Faculty Senate endorses this, right? And then how do we go from endorsing it to policy?
I think the best person to answer that question is Senior Provost Jane Cassidy.
So the way any policy is added to the policy list, we have 150 of them or so, is it would start with a committee that wants to bring that forward to a policy. So I'm going to, let's say, assume that this committee is the group. So they would draft the policy, comes to our office, and then we look at other policies that we have, make sure that there's no overlap, it doesn't belong someplace else, et cetera, et cetera. And then we circulate it to the stakeholders, which would be beyond just the group that that wrote it. And then it goes all the way up the chain and has to be signed. Well, let me stop there because I'm not quite sure at this point how it needs to be signed. But I mean, for sure, it would have to be signed by the provost and probably the executive vice president. So it's probably a 6 or 8 month process, but it starts with a group that wants to propose it. So,
Yes.
Heidi Thompson for Summer Chandler for the Law Center. So 2 comments and a question. I think this did a great job of laying out, positives, negatives to it and things to be concerned about. Was there discussion about time saving aspects of it? Because I think, right, that's the lure, right? Clients call law firms. Why aren't you using generative AI instead of me paying you for 10 hours of work and it can do it in 1? Well, we all know, and y'all have this in here, verification is key, right? And verification takes time. And so was that something that was discussed as being put in one of the considerations is it a time saver or a time, I'll use the word absorber instead of sucker, so is it really saving time to do the task well when the human has to come in behind and spend the time verifying? And on that front, as educators with our students, are we ensuring our students can do it on their own? Because what happens when technology goes down or 10 years later when all anybody can do is put data into the app and not know what made the app work the way it worked? So I think this points out those, but I'm just wondering if maybe a little more adding on the time saver piece might be useful. And then the last question, here comes the lawyer in me, with SAA, what are we requiring as proof of a violation? Because it's, especially I know working with the law tools, the mistakes that generative AI makes are the same mistakes that I saw 5 years ago by a developing or struggling law student. So it's really hard to say, I have a certification they have to sign, but it's hard for me to prove that they honestly completed that certification, versus whether they used AI or if they're the struggling law student. So what is SAA going to require, for me to hold them accountable? What would I have to prove if I reported a student to SAA?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. That we talked about this at length, and you're absolutely right. It's really difficult to pinpoint, especially ChatGPT and similar LLMs just can produce the same. I don't think this is working. They can produce different essays with the same prompt, so you can't really pinpoint and say the student cheated. So next semester, we will be really talking about Grammarly and how, to be or not to be with GAI model. I mean, and if it's been suggested by some of us that maybe if we go all the way and allow, we live in a world that changes every minute with GAI and what's happening around us. Perhaps if we were to allow Grammarly on steroids, right, full GAI use, that's the only thing students can use where they can actually produce what like all the versions that they have worked on only through Grammarly. I'm I would say that I'm against it. I'm a humanist. I'm a music theorist. So critical thinking is very important to me and many of our colleagues here at LSU and beyond. So, so it's going to be really difficult. We're still grappling with that. And I think everyone in the world is grappling with that. How can you hold someone accountable if you can't really prove that they've used the GAI tool against professors, requirements. So we're still working on that. But earlier about the critical part of it, I think Christopherson was asked, we have talked at length about just, what's being lost. It's critical thinking that's being lost. And I hope that a lot of the professors would make that point, especially those who do not allow the use of GAI in their classrooms, that they do take the time to put a prompt. I know some of my colleagues in music history do that, just put a prompt in ChatGPT and just go through all the fallacies that it produces and just hallucinations. And I think at some point, a colleague said that one of the influences of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony was Beethoven's Ninth Symphony was listed as one of the influences. It's just ridiculous things like that. So I think it's important to spend the 10, 15 minutes of class and to show the fallacies and the ridiculousness of some of the things that are that some of these generative AIs do, so that the students also see that. Right, right. And also, from my experience, it cannot cite. It just makes up citations. That's also another sign. I've encouraged my colleagues in humanities to say, make sure there are like at least 3 citations. ChatGPT, as of today, cannot do that. But I think it will soon enough, right? So we can't rely on that. Yeah, it's just a matter of time. Yeah.
And I did want to
Doesn't take much to actually correct the word counts either.
praise for the notion that we're talking about developing courses specifically on the use of it. And I would go further and say, what if that could be a required course for the general college? I think in today's climate, and then you could do some of these things with more time dedicated instead of taking away from your course substantive time.
I think that is what Provost Blanchard's plan is, that will be one of the required introductory courses, which probably all students will have to take. Provost, do you want to say something?
That's okay. I'll make it quick. No, I think right now, I think that's a big question we have is where does it fit in sort of the ILC gen education sort of framework? So there's a lot of questions there. I think the other piece of this though is so much of this is imminent that we have to get training out there just for the good of the students immediately. So I think that's what we're really focused on right now. And I think bringing together some of the great intellectual horsepower that we have on campus to think through what that looks like and to bring all that to the, to the table is what's really critical. So that's sort of the trajectory right now. Thanks.
And I would just like to go back to the last 2 questions, like about skills and the time saving and so on. Like out of those 19 meetings, I don't want to give an impression that we used 19 meetings to write this 12-page document. So about like 15 to 16 meetings, we discussed each and every point about generative AI, pros and cons from different sides, from different units. And I wish Tracy Norton was here today. Like she had a very important meeting in New Orleans to speak about generative AI. But like with Tracy on one hand, who is the absolute enthusiastic supporter of generative AI, and Inesa as an absolute critic, like you can imagine the document which was produced was essentially the middle ground, which was based on 2 fundamental principles. Academic integrity cannot be sacrificed, and academic freedom of any faculty member we cannot have any question on that. So the document tries to strike a middle ground where everyone will be slightly unhappy, but more or less happy in the end.
Like adding to Param's, like when you say that there are 3 options, you can go complete prohibitive AI, right? Like that's faculty giving the degree of freedom to faculty. Now, to your point, the onus now falls on the instructor to make sure you have prohibited it, a student still used it and did not cite it. How are you going to go basically to SAA, right? So student accountability will become a challenge in some sense. Another case where professors are basically going at the other extreme that I have to use this AI in my syllabus, all freedoms, you have to kind of ask the question that was asked. It's like, are we losing some critical thinking in this particular part? How are you going to evaluate that students are really learning? What does it mean to really learn in the environment when everything can be generated so easily using Gen AI? So I think a lot of learning, it's not just basically we're giving it to the students. All the faculty involved has to have a skin in the game. We will have to learn these tools, whether we are going to adopt it or not. I'm using it, I'm writing it in papers and all that. But what was discussed in our meetings is a critical embrace part of it. We are talking about technology over here. Technology will do what we are going to put as an incentive for the technology to do. At the end of the day, learning part has to be done by the human, right? So we can't be making decisions and when telling like, okay, it is happening because we are using that technology and we allowed it. No, I think we made bad decisions is basically we changed our incentives on not checking whether the students are doing critical thinking or not. And I think that's when things will fall apart. But I think we are in a region where all this is happening so rapidly that if we do not pick ourselves up and try to look at all the positives and negatives and the things that we should be worried about, or how our next generation is going to be learning it, I think we'll have to kind of everybody is in this boat. We can't have, I don't want it in my class, I'm not going to do it. I don't think you have a choice. That's just what I was trying to do.
Add to this, I think like there should be a way to say that we don't want to have it in our class, and I think this is important for some like find it very important to not embrace it, kind of like to just say no, we don't want this. And I think one of the three recommendations here in our syllabus versions does just that. At the same time, I think if you're an educator, you need to be aware of what it's capable of. Because if you're not aware of what it's capable of, then the students will fool you every time.
What?
Hello, my name is Nicolette Davis, and I'm a librarian. And I have a comment, and I also have a question. My comment is that I didn't see any like LSU Libraries faculty on the list of people a part of this committee. And I think that's really important because we do teach about critical information literacy in our sessions. Some of us are also adjuncts, like I teach information literacy and critical analysis. And last semester when I taught, I think I submitted the most students to SAA out of my whole department, even though the class is about information literacy and critical analysis. So we do have these courses in place to teach students about being critical, evaluation, things of that nature. But I would just also like to advocate for my library staff or the library faculty that we also should be included in these conversations because we do teach about critical information literacy, and that's like a part of what we do. My question is, for the part about translation, is that only for foreign languages, or like, say it's something that's in like Shakespearean language and somebody wants to translate it? Is it for that, or is it just for foreign language?
Okay, so coming back to the first point first, I think President Tyrone had invited various faculty senators to be on the committee. I would love if you can be on the committee.
I'm not volunteering, but I'm just
like we have a one open slot. Like, and I think like LSU library, and if you know anyone from LSU libraries like who want to be on this committee from the next semester, like please just write to me. Like we'll put that person on the committee. On the second part of the translation, that is, I was really welcome this feedback because this is what was tricky, and I spent last 48 hours struggling with where to strike the middle ground. One of the senators and some other faculty members, they wrote to me saying, well, students are using generative AI tools they are abusing generative AI tools in the sense because they are writing things in their native language and then using Chat GPT, for example, to translate assignments in English. Then Senator Mazza brought up a case yesterday where someone from German said, well, the way the translation is included in the last edit of December 1 version, it doesn't suit them. So what we tried to do was to find a middle ground where we can make the foreign language department happy and also like the concerns which were raised by the senators. I think, again, this is a living document. This is not a policy. Whatever edit you have, whatever you want to suggest, we can work through this. So this is not written in stone, anything like that. In fact, this feedback is important. Right now, the goal is that if the Senate endorses these guidelines, at least we have something in LSU which fills a very important gap. Most universities had these guidelines and policies since 2022. We are in end of 2025. We still don't have these. Supratik?
Yeah. So my proposal would be, why don't we have a university-wide honor code for Gen AI, which students have to sign when they enter LSU, right? So where they promise not to take any unfair advantage of generative AI. And how do you enforce that? Every semester, you randomly choose a set of students for an oral exam. So if you have taken unfair advantage of Gen AI, then if you are selected for that oral exam, then you are in soup.
So I think, thank you, Supratik. You brought up these ideas like when we were having
I know that Caltech uses that.
Yes. And when you were when we had the summer panels last year, you had brought this up again. Like I acknowledge that. We can certainly work with SAA to see whether we can have some sort of an honor code. We can probably think of a resolution in the Senate next semester if we require some honor code. As far as like oral exams is concerned, I think every faculty member has that academic freedom to change the syllabus the way they want and incorporate that.
I think this oral exams was kind of suggested as one of the things when you suspect abuse of Gen AI for the instructors that are allowing it and the students are not crediting that. So if I say, I'm asking, let's say your Gen AI is allowed and you're supposed to turn in a reflection and you did not turn in a reflection, as an instructor, you can always ask, okay, we'll have an oral exam or something like that. So again, degree of freedoms lie on the instructor, how they want to evaluate it. So
I think there's a question there.
Rosemary and then Brett.
Rosemary Peters-Hale, French Studies, and I am 1000% on with Inessa on this. I have it on my syllabus that AI is not permitted, generative AI is not permitted in my classroom. I have nonetheless had final presentations from students who cannot conjugate the basic first family of verbs that are in perfect fluent French. It's not actually very convincing, but it happens every single semester. I have ended up losing class time because I do not allow typed papers anymore. Everything is written out by hand, and that has to be in front of me. And that, depending on the prompt, the essay requirement, that is a good half hour at least, if not longer. So my question, I had a comment, which following up on Nicolette's comment, that I noticed no HSS faculty members on the committee, nobody from humanities and social sciences. This is a very big oversight, and I'm kind of stunned because we are the largest college on campus, and we're a college of writing and reading and critical thinking. Not that anybody else is not a college of critical thinking, but we're a college that produces writing, and to omit humanities and social sciences from the committee is really just unthinkable to me. So
if I can just comment on that, I didn't constitute the committee, and we made sure we listened to your faculty members. The faculty members which were invited, especially were from your college, from English, from history, and so on, and we listened to their concerns very, very deeply.
But there is nobody on the committee.
Will be very soon.
Okay.
Like the ethics, like Mike Ardoline is going to be on the committee, and he's a champion of like generative AI in the sense of like he has thought very deeply.
He's in art.
That's
not HSS. He's in art. He's in philosophy and religious studies. I'm sorry, I read the wrong name out there. Okay, so that's fine. And great, you answered my problem. Thank you. But I take issue with the fact that this set of guidelines was created with no HSS member on the committee.
Yeah, but again, like HSS input was taken as widely as possible. I promise you that. That is evidenced in the minutes.
Excuse me. I didn't want to do that into the microphone. Sorry. My question then. I beg your pardon. Is to what extent is student government involved in this decision or these discussions? Pardon me? Okay. Because I mean, I imagine the students know more than I do about how to use AI,
So the committee in the very beginning discussed whether to involve students or not. And the committee decided that because these matters fall under the faculty purview, we should not have any student members on the committee because we are making the policies. At some point, we thought like we'll do the faculty and student surveys, but we were now like pushed by Governor Landry's deadline. But Vice Provost Bach, she sent the document to student government. I did not receive any feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brett Boutwell, College of Music and Dramatic Arts. I'd like to thank the committee for their work and move to call the question.
Objections to the motion to call the question. Okay, we have some objections. Okay, so we'll proceed to a vote on the motion to call the question. All those in favor of calling the question to end debate and proceed to a vote, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
All right, the ayes have it. We have ended debate. We will now proceed to a vote on the main motion. The main motion is for a Senate endorsement of the GAI guidelines as presented today. All those in favor of the Senate endorsing guidelines, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. The resolution or the motion carries and the document is endorsed. Thank you very much to the committee and thank you for the discussion.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Jessica Zagorski, Assistant Dean for Graduate Admissions. I'm here to talk about our proposal today, which, like Dan said, would update our catalog. So the proposal seeks to reduce the minimum university, which i.e. the grad school requirements for our transcript and resume application materials. We'll get into that in just a second, as well as alter the language for bachelor degree accreditation requirements, which you heard some about the higher ed reform earlier, as well as extend the deferral period to 1 year beyond their original admission term. So again, we'll go into all those there in detail. So these proposed items were developed to address concerns brought to me and the dean and associate dean by graduate faculty and staff to address processing timelines, turnaround times to get applications through for processing, access to our application, and access to the system, and then just flexibility with some of the current policies. So we'll go through each of those 4 items that I had bolded there. So for the minimum application requirements for transcripts, currently we require all transcripts from all higher education institutions, all schools that were attended by the applicant, and they are required to be submitted to us. So why is that a problem? Right now, this significantly delays our application review timeline. We have to wait on every single transcript. If they took, one class at a community college 18 years ago and we find it on the transcript, but they didn't list it, we must then go back and add it and email them, and then we have to wait for them to order the transcript and send it to us. As you can imagine, this takes days typically, right? And sometimes it's not just one, it could be multiple transcripts. So then we're waiting on those. And the student is also having to pay for these transcripts as well. For our campus students online, it does pay for some of them if they're able to do a third-party order, but students are still having to pay for some of them as well there. So It takes an extensive amount of time. And again, that's delaying it to getting to our graduate programs for that review. The bigger concern used to be that schools could withhold transcripts if students had outstanding federal financial aid loans. That is no longer permitted. So, the issue used to be, well, we need to see if they have outstanding loans and we need to get everything here. It's no longer an issue. If there's an outstanding federal financial aid loan, the school still has to release the transcript. The only time they can withhold it is if it's a personal university hold. That would be the only time they could withhold a transcript now. So we are proposing that we would only require transcripts from schools where a degree was earned, or if that applicant is going to be requesting transfer credits from that institution as well. So again, this is going to help us reduce processing time and then the amount of money that applicants may need to pay to send those transcripts. The next item is the resume material requirement. So right now in our catalog, we do state that the graduate school requires a resume, and they have to upload it before they can actually submit the application. So the problem here is that, we, the graduate school, we don't need a resume. My team, we're sitting here, we're collecting documents, we're processing them. We are not reviewing that resume for, oh, they have a really great career. They're going to, we're not looking at that. We're just like, resume check, great. But it's something that actually causes a delay because they have to submit it before they can submit the application. So again, they've got to prepare it, they've got to do all that and get it submitted there as well. So, upon research, I have found that most of our competitor and peer institutions are not requiring that as part of the minimum university requirements. So I'm proposing that we remove the resume as a grad school requirement, and then programs can still notify us, me, that they'd like it included, and I will make sure it's added via rule in Slate to be added to their checklist. That way the program certainly can still get that resume. It just won't hold up the student from clicking submit on their application. And again, this is going to help speed up the process. And it's one less, like we have certificate programs, right? All of those right now, they have to submit a resume. And sometimes, a lot of our certificate applicants are, it's along the way in their master's and their doctoral, and you all probably already know them. And so it's like, it's just taking that extra time for that. Okay, the regional accreditation language. So currently, our catalog does state that we only accept applicants with bachelor's degrees from regionally accredited institutions. You may know that the Department of Education ended the regional accreditation language and kind of did away, quote, right, with regional accrediting bodies in 2020. However, most schools and most of our peers are still using this language as well and as a standard kind of basis for admission. Now, the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, CHIA, is they still recognize regional accreditation on their website. They still list like the 6 accrediting bodies that are regional, right? They still recognize them. So that's where we need to ensure that we are still having some of that language, because we want to ensure that we are, keeping up with the competitive nature of our peers. But the second piece of the problem is that we have, found over the past year that some of these bodies that are not quoted as being the 6 regional bodies, they have, very similar rigorous standards for accreditation as SACS, Midwestern, right? All of the bodies there. So this has caused some of our qualified applicants to be turned away. And so we want to make sure that if we do have qualified candidates, that they are able to apply. So the proposal is to edit our regional accreditation language in the catalog to include, regional accreditation or equivalent body. So that way, again, they have equivalent standards, they have similar standards, and we're going to make sure that we can give them a chance at admission as well. So we want to, of course, stay ahead as we have new accreditors coming and continuing to be formed. And then we, again, want to make sure it's purposefully written so that we can still maintain a high standard of admission, but provide access there for students and applicants who may not have attended one of the 6 former regional bodies. Listen, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm tired of saying it that way, but I kind of have to. Okay, deferral timeline. This is the last piece here. So the graduate catalog currently only allows applicants to defer 2 semesters, which does include summer, and that is very specific in the catalog as well. So many programs, as you know, do not admit over the summer, or maybe they don't admit over the spring. So this can really limit our applicants to only be able to defer 1 term. So if they need to defer but then they miss the 2 semesters, they would have to reapply. So if they can't, if they can't get here in the spring, they apply for the fall, can't get here in the spring, program doesn't admit summer, they'd have to reapply for the following fall. So what we are proposing here, and pay the fee. So what we are proposing is to allow them to defer up to 1 year, which would be 3 campus semesters, or if they're an online applicant, the 6 online modules there. So this is going to give our applicants the best chance at starting. Visa delays are increasingly common, so we just want to make sure everyone has the chance. Maybe they have a personal circumstance, extenuating circumstance, someone will give them that opportunity. And programs can still decline a deferral, right? This is still, I still say, all right, where's your program approval? So we still are leaving it up to the programs. You all still have the opportunity to say, unfortunately, we can't accept a deferral. That's still, within that realm. This would just be expanding it so that we can allow you all also to accept them up to 1 year if you would like. There you go. That is the proposal.
Full overview, if you can just.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, let's just go back here.
Immediately. So any questions or feedback on the proposal? Just wait for the microphone, please. And then please do identify yourself.
Sure. I'm from Mechanical Industrial Engineering. I'm the DGS of Mechanical Engineering. So, I have first of all, the resumes is something that we certainly will require for our review process because there's nothing that we can do without that. Regarding the transcripts, I have the question whether you could clarify, because we have the distinction between unofficial and official transcripts, and I would certainly hope that the graduate school will continue to check the transcripts before they pass it on to us, because that's one of the really beneficial tasks that the graduate school is doing for everyone. And if you could clarify that, it would be great.
Yes, absolutely. We are still going to be checking those transcripts. As you all may know, we do allow unofficial transcripts at the time of the application, and then we follow up after admission. If we don't have official transcripts, we collect those. But yes, we will still be checking for degree conferrals, any in-progress courses, anything that might be listed on the transcript as a red flag. We will still be doing a full transcript review. And as far as the resume, what will happen if this is passed? Then I'll put out an all call to our programs and say, if you'd like a resume listed, let me know. And I build a rule in Slate, and then it gets added to the checklist. So if, any programs that would like that resume, we will get that added.
Hi, again, Rebecca Christopherson from the Vet School PBS. So you will continue to look at the transcripts that you require, but if you no longer require the transcripts, no one will look at those, correct?
Correct. And now if a student, maybe a point of clarification, if a student does list the 8 schools they've attended, we're going to collect those transcripts. We're not going to say, oh, we don't need these. We'll still collect them if they list them. It's just if they only list that they attended this school because they got a degree there, we're not going to be checking up for other transcripts.
I wonder how many red flags will be missed, because a pattern of taking a class and dropping in the last 5 years from 5 different institutions is a data point, right? So at what point do you think you are losing some unofficial non-grade information that, especially if you're talking about something intensive like a research program, patterns of behavior are sometimes more important than test scores.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say anecdotally, what I have found, most of our students that have, 6, 7 transcripts are actually our veterans or, military children who followed their families around. I don't personally see a lot of, students who have been to schools because they can't pass a class or whatnot, right? And there's also always a chance that they're omitting those anyway. Right. If we're catching the ones, we really catch a lot of the transfer credits. So if a school has listed, oh, they also attended this school and this school and this school, we add those. Otherwise we don't know. Right. And that's why there's all the honesty statements on the application. So I would say, programs would still have the option to require, as a requirement, hey, we need all of your transcripts, but we'll do those verifications. And again, most times when I see it, it's students who have 5 or 6 transcripts, and one of them is like a Air Force transcript or something, that's like usually a military student.
All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. All right, the motion is approved. Thank you very much. No worries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to give you a brief update on the centralization project, which I think I came and presented on earlier in a few meetings ago, and wanted to then make sure I answer any questions you have. As a reminder, this is something that started back in the spring, where then President Tate asked me if I would take on this project. Yes, he's since left after that, and I double checked with Matt Lee to make sure he still wanted me to move forward, and he said yes. And I have got confirmation also from Chancellor Dalton that he absolutely wants me to keep moving forward. So if you were wondering, is there still support? There's a massive amount of support for this to continue moving forward. So figured I would give you an update on what we've been doing. So we've got about 23 departments that we are dealing with that have IT personnel that are not considered part of ITS. I made the pledge early on that I would meet individually with every single dean and every single head of an area that has one of these 23 departments. I have done that. Some deans I've met with multiple times. That's to make sure we have a one-on-one. They understand what we're trying to do, how we're going to do it, what it could mean, and that any concerns they have can be brought back to me. I have also been invited to quite a few either departmental meetings or college leadership meetings to also present on this. And I still say I will make myself available to anybody, whether it's an individual or a department or college that would like me to come and talk. I'm happy to do that, because what's important to us is the feedback, right? And we'll get into that in a second. We did do 2 surveys that went out to each of these groups. All of them have been completed. There's one department still left that's doing that second survey. It's a massive amount of data. So I've got a team that has been working tirelessly since the spring, putting together all this data and then trying to make sense of what is going to be the next steps. What I can tell you is I feel very confident about where we're at and also where we're heading. And I feel confident that this will be a good experience for everybody. I know there's a lot of doubters, and I've seen that in our satisfaction survey responses that, only 65% of the respondents said they were confident that this centralization will be a good thing for them. I like a challenge. My hope is that when we're done, everybody will say this has been at least not a bad experience, right? But I think it'll actually be a good experience. And I'll show you a couple of ideas we've got that we hope will help. We have transitioned one department already into ITS, and that's Res Life. We are on the cusp of quite a few more moving. We're just not there yet, but we probably will be in the early spring. You'll see quite a bit more movement coming in. I mentioned before, the feedback from all of our customer base is extremely important through this. And so as I've had my meetings, as I've been out to visit, as I've met with the Faculty Senate IT Committee, everywhere we've been taking notes of what the concerns are. And what I'm hoping, again, after today, that some of those concerns you can be sure that we are going to address. First and foremost, when we talk centralization, it can mean a lot of different things. In our case, in a lot of these situations, we've got to leave people embedded
in the colleges and the departments where they are. That is the only way this is going to be successful. We heard that over and over again from faculty and departments, especially those that are happy with the support they've got. Some of the others who might not be as happy, they're more asking, hey, this is going to be good for us because we feel like our support will get better. We are going to do that, and I'll show you a little map of some things we're thinking about, but it will be critical that there are people stationed in the different areas, might not be the exact area they're in now, but stationed locally, embedded within the customer base that they're serving. They will be our employees. They will be following our processes and procedures. That is where we think we'll gain some efficiencies, and I'll talk about some of the initial thoughts on what we're going to do with those efficiencies. Nowhere does it mean we're letting anybody go. It's quite the contrary. We're trying to actually improve our support to you. And we feel like by doing this, but doing it carefully, that we can strike the balance of you still having what feels like very personal support for you, like what you're used to, but creating even more advantages for you as a customer. So this is what we have. Again, it reinforced what we already kind of figured, but hearing it from you guys and from the departments was great. I mentioned we are going to create a regional structure. This is not, we should have had draft somewhere. I was supposed to say draft all over it, but we are going to create support regions across campus. And that's where we're going to cluster some key individuals, including general desktop support folks and classroom support / AV support people. That's to allow for quick response, whether it's in a classroom or whether it's to your office. Some of these will look big. These are showing large regions. We're going to actually have sub-regions inside of many of those. For example, the one in red is athletics, right? That's showing all the athletics complex and everything. That one will probably be the largest geographical space, but I don't plan on running to the baseball field, hopefully, to fix many computers. So that's why it's really big. But we will be careful and intentional with how we draw these regions, keeping in mind the existing individuals that might be in these departments. Where we will gain our efficiencies, I'll just give one quick example. And it's boring, which is why I'm excited about it, because when you get a new computer, or if your computer breaks, you need to have it reimaged. There are multiple individuals across campus doing their own thing, keeping up their own system for doing that, which can be time consuming. We could have one, and we already have one that we use centrally, that if everybody would just use that, it will save quite a bit of their time and effort. And there's lots of examples of those things that the way in which they image the computer doesn't differentiate the support you get per se. But if we can create enough of those efficiencies to where they are required to follow our processes, doesn't mean it hurts the support you get, that we think we can then turn into other advantages for you. The thing that many people have asked and are concerned about is, does this mean we're going to go into a one-size-fits-all type organization? Absolutely not. I do believe there's a large percent, 80, 85, 90% of the workload that's happening across campus when it comes to IT can be addressed with general processes and things that we have in place. But if we do that smartly for those 80 to 90%, we can free up extra time to help the 10%. Researchers that have special needs, we absolutely, in fact, we want to improve that support. We don't want to take that away. So if you have old computers that are required because you have a piece of equipment that's 20 years old and can't spend $1 million, we are still going to continue to support that. And my team has done some heroic work with old computers that broke and finding parts online and replacing it. So that is not going to go away. It cannot go away. If we want to increase our research productivity, we have to find ways in which we can actually give you more support. So my goal is to try to strike the balance. I am giving up some efficiencies by creating this more localized model. But I think we're striking the right balance of creating enough efficiencies, but not really hurting what you guys are used to, for those, again, who are happy with their support. So that is what we've got in place. Now, some of the ideas. What we're going to do, and this is based on feedback from some of the colleges, Vet Med, for example, runs a 24/7 hospital. So they have asked us, can you have and give us 24/7 on-campus support? We are going to do that. Some of these efficiencies we want to create will allow me to have people working through the night and on nights and weekends, so that, and including holidays. So we're here on Christmas Day. So if you're a researcher and you've got to submit a grant, and you might be the rare person who waits to the last minute to submit the grant, if you have a problem, you can now call us. There will be someone here who could run to your office. They will understand desktop computing. They will understand and have access to get in to fix the computer. They will know AV, so that if you're doing a special event, like in this auditorium on a Saturday, and the projector won't turn on, you can call us and we will send that person out to at least attempt to help you and troubleshoot. Can't guarantee we're going to be able to fix everything, but it will at least be a live person on this campus at all times for you. And then the second one is going to be the classroom support. So many of you might be teaching in a departmental supported classroom, which at this moment does not have centralized AV IT support. You have to call your department tech or your college tech or somebody. And if you're teaching at night in that room, I don't know whether there are people that help you. What we're going to do as a result of this is all general purpose classrooms will be supported equally, so that my staff, who's here till 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night during the week, will be here and will not discriminate, which is done now. Are you in a registrar scheduled classroom? If so, we'll come help you. Oh, you're not? We don't help, because there's a local department that says we're doing that support. That's going to go away, because I believe you all deserve equal levels of support no matter what room you're teaching. And it's not fair to the faculty, and it's not fair to the students. So that will be something that also will come out of this, is that you'll get consistent support across the board. I'm trying to be brief so that I can save time for questions. Like I said, I think we are doing a lot of data collection and looking through all of that. We do feel very confident that there's a good path forward that we will be continuing on as we get into the spring. My hope is to have this done by the end of spring or early summer. And I will stop there so that I can answer questions if there are any.
We have time for one or two brief pressing questions with the Chief Information Officer.
Hi, Craig. I'm assuming that when you say hardware, you'll be both on the Apple and the PC, correct? That those two platforms will be considered standard and supported?
3 platforms.
In Unix, right?
And Unix, Linux, all 3.
Okay.
We do not have expertise in ITS on Linux desktop support, but there are folks out across the colleges, as we do the surveys, that we know there are plenty of people that have that. So the goal is, again, this is where this can benefit. We can create that expertise at ITS, and we can offer that across the board. So all 3 will be supported.
So last semester, we passed a resolution for providing laptops to faculty. So what happened to that resolution?
It was passed here, and then we've had lots of changes in leadership, but there's 2 things I am pushing for. That the laptops, not just laptops, just equipment replacement for faculty. I still feel so strong. We have to do that. And if I get opportunities, I've been doing this with the CFO, but any other opportunities to get with any new leadership, we will continue that push. The fact that ITS and Faculty Senate is doing this arm in arm, I think carries a lot of weight. And I'm relatively confident something's got to happen there. It has to. It's just not sustainable the way we have things set up. Likewise, on the classroom side, the department scheduled classrooms, I would like to obtain funding so that those classrooms can be brought up to minimum standards that match the registrar scheduled classrooms. Because again, it's not fair to the students, it's not fair to the faculty who just by chance get stuck in a room that's department scheduled and all they have is a transparency overhead projector, right? So we want to fix both of those things. I will not stop asking. I swear, I just asked the CFO about the classroom thing 2 days ago. And I do get positive responses. I do think we will be able to do something, and we both need to keep that fight going on both of those items, classrooms and on replacements for faculty.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Ulig from theater, but I teach film, and I just wanted to confirm that the IT system that like we currently have that's fluent in like subject specific stuff still would stay, but then they would report to the centralized system, or?
Yeah, it will depend on, there are some areas where they've got some very, very specialized things that even go outside of IT that we might not decide we want to take that on. So then we would leave either the individual or whatever there. We haven't found much of that, but there is a little bit of that. But I would say mostly what we found across all campus are things that we're comfortable taking on.
And if we're not one of the departments that then is part of the centralized, would we still get access to like the 24/7?
Absolutely.
Okay.
24/7 in classroom, that's going to happen. But like I said, I can say that pretty confidently because I feel like most of the individuals that we've got in the surveys, we feel comfortable that they would move in anyway. So I don't think I'm taking a big leap there. But no, the goal is keep it simple. We support, the more we can just say we support broadly, the easier it is for everybody. Thank you.
Yes, you need one. So I really.